In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Hey, Shalom. All praises to Yahawashi, Yahawashi, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles at Great Millstone. And peace to you, sincere brothers out there, the true house of David. Basically, what I wanted to do is just go over the Space Force and go over the second coming of Yahawashi, because when you really go into that, what Ronald Reagan was actually talking about is going into the second the second coming of the Lord, which the second coming of the Lord is mentioned throughout the scriptures. You know, Isaiah chapter 63, you have 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. It also mentions it in the book of Revelations. But the second coming of the Lord, that's what they're preparing, the space army. They're preparing these things. That's why you hear about these things all the way going back to 1984 with Ronald Reagan. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a few scriptures real quick. Grab a few scriptures, go into this real quick, touch on it, because the second coming of the Lord is going to be something spectacular, and that is our deliverance. You know, the scriptures say that through much tribulation shall we enter to the kingdom. So through all this stuff that's going on, the scriptures say our deliverance shall be they shall be amazed by the strangers of our salvation. So the scriptures talk about the deliverance of the elect. The Lord said when he come back, will he find faith on the earth? And that's the thing about it, faith on the earth. As the Lord say, when you go to Luke chapter, what would that be? Luke chapter 18 verses 7. It says, and shall not the Most High avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear along with him? And I tell you, he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Right. So the Lord is asking you, will he find faith on the earth? And that's the thing about it, man. When the Lord come back, he said, will he find faith on the earth? And that's the time we're in. You won't find faith in the earth, but you'll find faith with the Lord's elect. When you go to Isaiah chapter 63, the 63rd chapter. Isaiah chapter 63 verses 1, it says, who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? Because the scriptures is asking you, who is this that comes from Bozrah? And who is that talking about? It's talking about Yahawashi. And Edom is the main city in Bozrah in the ancient times. Now America is that city, the great whore that sits upon many waters. This is that great city. And the Lord said, who is this coming from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? That is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that spake in righteousness, mighty to save. Salakia, travailing in greatness of his strength, I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. That's right. The Lord is coming back in those angelic, those spaceships, as the scripture tell you in Zechariah chapter 5, verses 1. It says, then I turned and I lift up my eyes and looked, beheld a flying roe. And it says, and he said unto me, what seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roe. The length of her is 20 cubits, and the breadth of her is 10 cubits. Right, so that's the Lord. The Lord is coming back in those angelic space forces. And that's why they get these you get these Salaki, you get these movies going into Independence Day and so on and so forth, because these Edomites, they know about the second coming of the Lord. Also mentioned in Isaiah in second address, the 13th chapter, which I'm going back to Isaiah chapter 63. Isaiah chapter 63 and 2, it says, wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat? I have trodden down the wine press, and of the people there them alone, and I will tread them in my anger. And it says, I will tread them in my anger, and I will trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments. Right, because that's why his apparel is going to be red, because he's going to trample them in his fury. So the Lord is coming back with anger. It says, and I will stain all my raiment, for the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redemption is come. That's right. So the Lord is coming back with great wrath. That's why they tell you in the book of Revelations, hide me from the day of the great wrath, from the wrath of the king of the Lamb. Revelation chapter 6, verse 15, the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said unto the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come. Right, the great day of the wrath of the Lamb is coming. So these elites, going back to Ronald Reagan, what are they doing? They're trying to get the Space Force together. They're trying to assemble those military arsenals up into deep and outer space. And that's what the time is coming. Revelation chapter 17, verses 14, and they shall make war with the Lamb. Revelation 17 and 14, these shall make war with the Lamb. Right, the kings of the earth. And then Ronald Reagan said that we will have to come together if an alien threat ever came from outer space. And what's that alien threat? Which are what? Yahawashi. It says, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is the Lord of lords, King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. That's right, man. So they're going to make war with the Lamb. But what does the scripture say? They're going to overcome this demon. And that's what time we're in. As the scripture say, we shall overcome these, we have overcame this world. Yahawashi is going to come back and he's going to overcome these demons again, and he's not even going to lift up a finger. You see? Going to Revelations chapter 1 verses 3. 1 verses 7. It says, behold, he cometh with the clouds, and everyone shall see him, and they that pierced him, and all the kings of the earth shall well because of him. Even so, amen. That's right. The Lord is going to come with those clouds. pursuant to 2nd Esdras chapter 13. When you deal with 2nd Esdras chapter 13, what's going to happen is these nations are going to rise up together, and they're going to stop World War III. And what are they going to do? They're going to make war with the Lamb, as the scripture tells you in Revelation chapter 33. Revelation chapter 13:1, and it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea that moved all the waves thereof. And I behold, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen unto him. And whatsoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burnt, that heard his voice, like the earth felleth when it fleeth the fire. That's right. And after beholding, lo, I was gathered together a multitude of men, a number from the four winds of the earth, to subdue the men that came out of the sea. The sea is the firmament coming out of the atmosphere, sort of like Thanos on that on the Avengers when he was coming through the portals, when he was coming through through outer space. So according to Revelation, they was gonna what? Make war with the Lamb. And this is what they said. They says, and after that, behold, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men from the four winds of heaven to subdue the men that came from out the sea. But I beheld, and lo, and he graved themselves a great mountain, and flew up upon it. And what I have seen, the region or place whereof the hill was graven, I could not. For behold, and lo, they which were gathered together to subdue him were so afraid, but yet durst fight. Right, they were so afraid. Because when you go to Revelations chapter 11, as the scriptures say, Revelations chapter 11, verses 11, Revelations 11:11. And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from the Most High came unto them and entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Right, great fear fell upon them. So they was already scared when they seen the true Israelites rise up back on their feet. So now when the Lord come back, guess what? The scriptures say they were afraid. But guess what? They still are going to fight, man. Second Esdras chapter 13, verses 8. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue them were sore afraid, and yet durst fright. And lo, and he saw the violence of a multitude that came. He neither lift up his hand, nor held shield, nor any instrument of war, but only he sent out of his mouth, and it had been as a blast of fire out of his lips, and the flaming breath out of his tongue. And he cast out sparks and tempests. Right, the Lord is going to bring. He's not going to have to raise up a finger, none of that, because he's going to have what? It's going to have what? He's going to have that what? That spiritual power. You see? And lo, he saw the violence of the multitude that came near him, and he neither lifted his hand up, nor he had a sword. What? That's spiritual power. That's right. But only saw he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire out of his lips, and the flaming breath out of his tongue, and he cast out sparks and the tempest. That's right, man. And now this is what happened to the multitude. And they were all mixed together, and the blast of the flaming breath and the great tempest fell with the violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of the innumerable multitude nothing was perceived, but only dust and the smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. That's right, man. So it's going to be a trembling time for the second coming of the Lord. The second coming of the Lord is not going to benefit everybody. The Lord is only going to beam up his elect Only the elect will get caught up in the clouds, pursuing the 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, that great shout. And the Lord is going to gather his elect from the four winds of heaven, as the scriptures tell you about here in Matthew chapter 24. And let's see. Yeah, Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24 and 30. It says, and then shall appear the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with great power and great glory. And it says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound, and a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds of the heaven, from one end of heaven, from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. As the scripture tell you in what's that? It tells you in what's that scripture? Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. But yeah, I just wanted to run down that, man. The second coming of the Lord is going to come with spiritual power. And the Lord said that we're going to have the spiritual power too. You see? Pursuing the 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter. But I just wanted to run down on that real fast, man. Basically, the second coming of the Lord, they've been preparing for it. And we have to be spiritually and mentally prepared ourselves. But with that, man, I might do a follow-up on this lesson. But with that, man, great times is coming, man. Great times is coming. The second coming of Yahawashi with that 8 Shalom.